Okay, let's get started. I want to start by updating the schedule. We were supposed to start chapter 8 today, but we're going to finish chapter 7, so everything moves forward. So chapter 14 is eliminated. Yay. One less chapter on the final. So, all right. Let's see. We got a lot of stuff to cover today, and someone kind of keep track of time. We got to leave at least 12 minutes for our in-class assignment. Go ahead. Yes, and on the last lecture, I'll kind of give you hints, you know, what parts to study on a little bit. But about, I'm going to guess about 40% of the final is going to be the last subjects we cover since the last quiz. The other 60% is one or two problems from each of the previous chapters.
Are we allowed to use our old test for that?
No. Books and notes. Same as always, but no old quizzes. You can't whip out your quizzes.
You know, can we write them all down on a piece of paper?
You know, I actually suggested that once, you know, because I'm not looking around at everyone's notes, so if you have some notes off your quiz, I guess, I don't know, but you know, so officially no, but.
Honesty policy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't know if the quizzes are really going to help you, but I just don't whip them out. Don't have the quiz out. No one else had a question? That was it? Let's talk about the houses real quick. Now, there's about 15 of you who have not completed the house assignment yet. And you put yourself in a situation where the easy ones have been handed in. So it just makes it that much harder on you. And I want to tell you, this is one of those assignments where you have to complete it to get any score at all. If it's not, you know, perfect, at least something. And then you have till midnight. I extended the deadline to midnight tonight. And after midnight is like the usual homework, I believe. Let me get to the instructions because I can't remember if that's true. Where are the instructions? Right here? Let's see. Say anything about the usual late 25? I don't see it. But it's treated as homework. There it is. This assignment subject like homework. If it's late, 25% the first day, 10% each additional day after that. Don't forget, if your house calculates out to 1% to 3.99%, your score is an 80. Now, over 3.99, 4 and above, it's a score of 100. But you know, some people are having to hand in more than one house because of little mistakes on them of one or another. Maybe their pictures show that it needs too much work, or some people calculated out to 3.92 and they didn't realize they'd be getting an 80, so I gave them another chance. You know, you can hand in another house type of thing. I received some just. Here's is Rodney? Is he here? Rodney's not here. I want to tell you, I can't get to the picture. Look at this house he handed in. I can't believe it. Let me get to the. Look at this. Hang on. And it ended up being. Look at this. Look at that house. Isn't that something? And somebody's having to sell it, you know, for a significantly lower price than what the SED times 2 is, what the assessed value is times 2. But it's still for sale for 1.225 million. It's not like it's cheap, but it's unbelievable.
And there's only 5 bedrooms in it?
And it's in Grand Blanc, but it's really Goodrich.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of weird. It's like Vassar, near Vassar Road, kind of right on the border. What?
That's the realtor.
No, that's not the realtor.
That's not the realtor?
Oh, what are you talking about? Off to the right?
The office.
No, that's not the office. This picture?
No, no, he's saying it was in Clarkston.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You're right. In Clarkston, that'd be the realtor. Yeah, you're right.
I did that like 3 times. I looked up the address for the realtor, and then I was like, that's not right.
Here it is. It's on Huntsman in Grand Blanc. It's all about finding a house. Now, if those are having trouble, I want to give you the little hint. Let me just, I'm just picking a house at random. 2 hints. One is, I've noticed that Grand Blanc happens to have some houses for sale that are lower than 2 times the assessed value. Whatever's happening in Grand Blanc, some people are kind of selling the houses kind of low. Now I'm going to pick one at random. When you put your pointer, oh, this isn't Zillow, is it? Darn. On Zillow, you can take your pointer and put it on any of these little, maybe if I zoom in, maybe it'll work. Hang on, this is, and all of a sudden a little thing pops up and it tells you the square footage of the house. And the hint is, you can quickly put your pointer on a bunch of houses and take the square footage and multiply it times 100. Now, obviously, this is just a little bit of a hint. It doesn't work all the time, but for some, in Grand Blanc, there's several houses that this would work for. So I'm gonna have to click on one. This one says 269, but I'm sure it's not gonna be. Look out, I gotta go way down here to find the square footage. I can't even see it. Maybe it's the angle of my screen here. Anybody see it?
No.
Keep going? I'm used to Zillow. All right, so we'll switch to Zillow. Look at all this time we're wasting. I'll just put Grand Blanc. Doesn't matter. Okay, see all these dots? I put the pointer on a dot, it says 3,000 square feet. Look at that, can't be right. So you multiply that times 100, that's $300,000. If the asking price is less than 300, if it's significantly less than 300, you should say, okay, this could be one of those. I'm now going to check the taxes. A lot of people get frustrated because they take a house and go, I'm going to check the taxes. And they find that the taxes are lower. You take the assessed value times 2, it ends up being lower than the asking price. It's easy to find a house whose price is above 2 times the assessed value. Most people have their houses for sale, you know, overpriced, they're trying to get as much for it as they can. So to make this assignment go faster, you just keep moving your pointer around. Here's another one, 1,424 times 100 means if they ask you, look, what is going on? 5,000. Wait a minute.
It's the number at the top.
Oh, it's the number at the top. That's the price either went up or down. Okay. Look, I did it again. 400, well, take 4,275 square feet. It's crazy. I don't know why I picked such a big one, but times 100, move the decimal or whatever, that'd be $427,000. If the asking price, which is $689, were significantly less than 427, this is one you'd go, okay, let's see if it's on the list already, or let's go check the taxes. The frustration comes is when you keep taking houses, I think, you tell me, and you're checking the taxes, and you're spending all that time having to find the taxes, and just to find out that the house is priced higher than 2 times the assessed value, then you're going on to another house. So by using this little trick of multiplying the square footage times 100, especially in the Grand Blanc area, and you find one where the price is not just below it, but significantly below 100 times the square feet, this could be one. And it saves a lot of time of going back and forth with the taxes. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just going to wave it across a bunch. So this is 2,023 square feet, so $202,000. They're asking $355. I move on. Here's one 3,000 square feet. That'd be $300,000. They're asking $299. That's only 1,000 below, so it's not significant enough. I move on. You know, I just keep moving the pointer around until I find one. Oh, I got to move the map. Okay. All right, here we go. 2,600, that'd be times 100 would be 267,000. The price is higher than that. And this is how you kind of cancel out a bunch of houses and save a lot of time. Gee, there isn't a house even here. Okay. Multiply it times 100 would be $313,000. They're asking $280. This would be one where I'd go and check the assessed value. I'd check the address on the list that had been handed in already. You may notice the list. I don't know if it says it on your blackboard, but every time I post the list again, it gives me a little number of how many times I've posted it. So I think it's been posted 14 times I've changed it. So I try to put the latest list up so you can see, you know, what houses have been handed in. And that way you're not trying every single house, because I can see where that will get frustrating, one house after another, and you're finding that it's priced above 2 times the assessed value. So hopefully that'll save you a little bit of time. So there's my hint, to save time. Just trying to make it easier for you, because there's 15 of you that need to get it in. Another thing is, don't forget your participation includes doing the course evaluation. And when you get done with it, sometimes it will take you to a page where it lists the courses you finished and it shows you completed it. I'll take a picture of any page that shows you completed it. Some of them don't even have which course you completed. And so that I can put it on the spreadsheet that you did the course evaluation. It's part of your participation score, which usually, in most cases, your participation score, I go strictly by the numbers, but for most people, it kind of gives them a slight boost in their grade. So that's why maybe if you're worried about your grade at all and you want to get that boost, you probably want to do the course evaluation. All right? And you just take a picture. You can do a screenshot or just use your phone, take a picture, email it to me. Shows me you did it. Also, I'm getting you prepared for the final exam, so let's talk about one of these. We haven't talked about one of these in a while. You went ahead and used a credit card for a while, and now you finally got the 0% offers starting to come your way because you've started your full-time job, you've graduated, and you decide you want to go ahead and do a balance transfer from a 0% offer to this other 0% offer. And it's $2,000 you're transferring. And you make the minimum payment for the next 11 months and you decide to pay it off in full. How much will be the total fees and interest that you'll be charged after at the time that you do this balance transfer and then pay it off in full? What will it cost you to do this one? Anybody? Allison says nothing. How much? 40? I have $40. I have nothing.
It has a maximum of $10 that would be
No, maximum. I've never seen one with a
It
maximum.
says 2%, minimum
What?
$2, maximum 10.
A maximum of $10? That got right by me. Holy moly. Oh, what's balance transfer? Hey, it's happening. I haven't seen one with maximum $10. That's got to be a misprint. That's hard to believe. But I thought it was 40. I thought it was 40. There'd be no interest at all because it's 0% interest on balance transfer or purchases, right? Or is the balance transfer have interest? Oh, there's the trick. The balance transfer is not 0%. It's only the purchases on it. I probably wouldn't give you this one anyways because you'd have to multiply. You'd have to take 13.74%, only 11 months of it. That'd be too much. And I would have thought you were wrong when you said $10, and somebody would have to say, hey, it is $10. But I thought this would be 0%, and I thought the answer would be $40, just the 2%. But it really would be $10, and we'll pretend that says 0% on the balance transfer right there. So this one is different than most of the ones we've seen already. Next, on page 221. Last week, we went over renting versus buying. And I showed you how picking the right location is the key to where buying would always come out far ahead of renting. What I want to tell you is during your final, because you probably have for sure these two really important calculations, renting versus buying that we went over last week, and today we're going to do affordability calculation, which is really important, which will without a doubt be on your final also. So I wanted to make sure you knew this page existed. That really highlights renting versus buying, but there's a couple of parts of it we didn't cover, and you would not be expected to do it on the final. And in the renting, it says, where is it? It says interest cost on security deposit. It's called an opportunity cost. I'm not expecting you to do that part in the renting, on that part of the calculation, renting versus buying. So you can cross that out. Down here on the buying, it's called, where's it at? It's the same thing. It's where's the after-tax loss on the down payment called opportunity cost? You can cross that out on the buying. I won't expect you to do this part either. Everything else we covered in that lecture. I had it all up here on this board. And I showed you the key was that annual appreciation. That's where location is, why location is so important. Because this is how you make a money tax-free, is right there. And that's why renting will always come out far ahead of buying. That's why buying will always come out way ahead of renting, costing you far less money, making you money tax-free. Is that key part of it. So that was page 221. Next, monthly payment calculation. We're going to page 231. What this table does for you, it gives you a quick way to estimate the monthly payment on the mortgage part of a house payment. Now don't forget, most people who buy a house are making a payment on the mortgage, the loan that they borrowed to buy it, but they also have included on top of that is they have their property taxes split into 12 months, and that gets added on, and their house insurance split into 12 months gets added on. So when someone talks about their house payment, it usually also includes all three items: the loan payment, the house insurance, and the taxes. This table is just estimating the monthly loan part of the payment. And then you do whatever the estimated property taxes are divided by 12 and the home insurance divided by 12. So how this is used is you say, all right, most loans for houses, especially when you think interest rates are going to go up, are fixed rate loans, and usually people get 30-year loans. So look at the 30-year column because this is the most common loan that most people will be looking at. And then you look at the interest rate. Let's pretend you're not graduating for a year or two, so let's move the interest rate up to, right now the interest rate's around 4%, so let's go up to 5%. So you're looking at a 30-year mortgage at 5%, and let's say the amount you need to borrow is $100,000. You take the number off the table and you multiply it by the number of thousands you need to borrow. So not 100,000, how many thousands would you borrow if you're borrowing 100,000? 100 of them. So multiply that index number, let's see, 30 years, 5%, 5.37, is that correct? Multiply it times 100. Move the decimal 2 places to the right. That's $537 a month is your estimated monthly payment on that loan. Then take the taxes, divide by 12, add it on, take the home insurance, divide by 12, and add it on, and there would be the full payment. So that's how this table's used. Let's try one more just to make sure you get it. You're thinking about buying a house, interest rates are at 5.5%, you're looking at a 30-year mortgage, and you're borrowing $150,000. Let me put $150,000 up here. So I would look for the index number, it'll say what would you estimate the monthly payment to be. And you say 5.5% at 30 year, what is that, 5 point what? 68 or 88? 68? 5.68 times the number of thousands being borrowed, which are 150 of them. So you just multiply times 150. Get the calculator out, unless someone beats me to it. 852. So $852 is the estimated monthly payment for that loan. All right? So that's how that's used. This leads you into the most important calculation of today, which is this affordability calculation on the page right before it, page 230. Now don't forget what I said. Mark this page. Make sure you have it available for you when you're taking the final, because there's probably 100% chance this is going to be on your final. Now the toughest thing most students find is which column should they use. So let me define. One column is for if you don't have any other credit payments. You don't have a credit card payment. What else? I don't think you would have, is there even any other debt payments like credit cards or an auto loan. If you have none of those, which I'm sure most likely would not be the case, then you would use one column. The other columns, if you do have debt payments, a car loan or a credit card loan, maybe even a student loan would be included as a debt payment, which most of us, when we graduate, will probably be in that column. Probably a car loan, a student loan, maybe, that we have payments on. So that's the one I'm going to go over. The other one's very similar. A is the one that has, let me look here, other loans. Is that correct? Yeah, other credit payments. A. B is if there are no, if you don't have a car loan, you don't have a student loan. We're going to talk about A. The biggest difference between the two, Look at A. Now, this one starts with someone's yearly gross salary. This isn't take-home pay. This is their salary before taxes are withheld. This calculation is all based on gross pay. And in this case, it's $48,000. Now, if this problem, which it will be, on the final, it may not be giving you the gross pay for a whole year. It may just give you the monthly already. In this example, because it's the whole year, the first step is dividing by 12. If you're given the monthly gross pay, you don't have to divide by 12 because it's already been divided by 12. So make sure you recognize that. 48,000 divided by 12 equals 4,000 a month gross pay before taxes are withheld, anything else. Now, if you have other debt payments, you multiply that by 38%, 0.38. The other column, if you don't, uses 33%, I think, or 32. Can't see it from here. 33 or 2? 33. Make sure you're using the right one. So if you have a car loan and a student loan, you're going to multiply times 38%. In this case, 4,000 times 0.38 is $1,520. Now you subtract the monthly payment on student loan plus your car payment, and if you have a credit card or any other debt payment, what's that? In this case, this person has $380 a month on their car payment and maybe a student loan or maybe a credit card payment. Together it equals $380. That gets subtracted from that $1,520. Next, both of them now have to subtract the estimated home insurance monthly payment. Usually home insurance is quoted for a whole year. So, and the property tax is with it. That's why it's $300. So in this case, let's say, I want to add up to 300, so I got to real quick do a little math on it. Let's say the property taxes, the home insurance would be easier. Let's say the home insurance is $680 a year. You divide by 12. So that part of it, we're just going to call it $60. And then the other 240, let's say that calculates out to the property taxes. Property taxes, this is the home insurance. You got to realize that the story may be giving you the property taxes for a whole year, so whatever 240 times 12 is, and the home insurance for the whole year. You have to divide it by 12 to do these that next step, add them together. So you would say, oh, divided by 12, our property taxes would be $240 a month, our home insurance would be $60 a month. So now we're subtracting $300. We subtracted $380 for the car payment and our loan. Now we're subtracting $300. What do we have left? $840. This is the money that's now available for a house. Just the mortgage part of the house at this point. Now, you go look at the index table and you say, what can I get my loan for? At this point, you all started to look online and see what 30-year home loans are going at. You see it's 4.5%. Well, let's go with 4%. It's 4%. In this case, it says it's, what is it, 8%? 8%. But it's significantly less if we did this today at 4%, because the index number is 4.77, where the 8% is 7.34. So we take, we go ahead and for the sake of this, we use 8%, 30-year mortgage. It's 7.34. Now we don't know how much we need to borrow, because the whole calculation we're doing right now is to figure out how much we can afford to borrow. And then the very last step is going to be to calculate how much we can afford to make an offer on the house with our down payment included, not just the house payment. So you, instead of multiplying, you're dividing by that index number. So you can afford an $840 house payment, that's just the mortgage part. We're dividing by the index number. We're pretending the loan is 8% for 30 years. So we divide by the 7.34. Then we multiply by 1,000. We can afford a loan of $114,441. So there's, as far as financially with the information, limited information, this calculation gives you a good idea of how much you can afford to borrow. Now, I want you to see what happens if you use 4% index number. Divide by the 477, then multiply times 1,000. It's significantly more. These are, if you can get out of college soon and get that loan and get that house before interest rates go up, this is probably the least expensive interest rate you'll ever see in your life until the next housing crash takes place. It's going to be about 30 years from now. So, just to give you an idea. But 8% was pretty normal. Not that long ago, 10 years ago, 8% was everybody expected. So 114,000, now, the last step, a lot of people get confused. How much can you afford to put down? And you go, well, I saved, $10,000 for this moment to buy this house, or I saved $12,000, or maybe your employer's offering for you to be able to borrow against your retirement to use as a down payment for the house. Whatever the case may be, you need to figure out a percentage. So you're going, boy, I'd really like to look at houses that are 150,000. You're going to need, and you want to put 10% down, you're going to need 15,000 down. Here's what I always advise. If you can't put 20% down, there's one more thing you got to keep in mind. I want to point it out up here. It's called private mortgage insurance. Unless you find a special program you qualify for, like the Veterans Loan Program, I can't remember the name of another one, but almost any lender is going to say, if you're not putting down 20%, we need to have you pay mortgage insurance, PMI. It is, you are literally paying an insurance policy to protect the lender in case you default. And you have to get to 20% equity to not have to do this with almost any lender. And a lot of people want to get that first house, and so they don't have enough saved up for the 20%. So remember, you're probably going to have this in the picture. This is a monthly payment of about 1% of the price of the house. So a $100,000 house is like $100 a month. So was 1%, 1,000 divided by 12. It's a little less than $100 a month. So it's just money being thrown away. And there used to be, and you still may be able to do this, some lenders will say, to avoid that mortgage insurance, you can turn around right after buying the house and get a home equity loan, because maybe you found a house, you remembered I said you want to offer a low price on the next one, embarrassing low price until someone says yes. Well, you've created equity right away by doing that process. And right after you buy the house, a lot of mortgage companies will say, hey, because you got that house at such a good price, you could get a home equity loan, and you can turn around and use that as the down payment, pay off your mortgage, and bring it down to create the 20% equity to get rid of that mortgage insurance. Because the home equity loan then will almost pay for itself, because you're having to pay out $100 a month for the PMI insurance. And now you have $100 freed up to go ahead and pay the home equity loan, and you come out way ahead, because by paying the home equity loan, you're building even more equity on your house instead of just throwing it away on this insurance policy. It's an insurance policy that doesn't even cover you. It covers the company lending you the money. They're the ones who will benefit from that insurance policy if you were to default. That's why AEIG almost went bankrupt and had to be bailed out during the housing crisis. They held a lot of that insurance when the housing crisis took place, and they had to pay out a whole bunch of insurance payoffs to mortgage companies because these PMI insurances existed. Anyway, let's get to the final step. You are going to divide the amount you can borrow by 100% minus the percentage you think you can put down. This person thought they could put 10% down, so they're dividing by 0.90, which is 90%. 100% minus the 10%. If the story says you're going to be putting a 20% down payment, you're dividing by 80%, 0.8. If the story says you're putting a 15% down payment, you're dividing by 85%, 0.85. Does everybody get it? That's the last step. So you can afford a $114,441 loan, but you really can afford to buy a house, if you're going to put 10% down, at $127,157. So when you're looking at houses, how much of the houses ads is your limit that you're looking at as you're looking at houses, going out, what you can afford and what you can maybe make an offer on. What price range would you look at approximately? Would it be 127,000? Because that's the highest you can offer. And if you remember from the lecture last week, you're going to make an offer significantly below the asking price. So you might be looking at houses that are priced around 150,000, knowing that you're going to offer 127 or less. And that's where this calculation comes in. So you know what your limit is of houses you can start looking for. So when you go on Zillow or Century 21, you would put maximum 150 or 155, or depending on how much guts you have on low volume the offer. The key to making low offers is when you're walking around the house, don't let your jaw drop and show your emotion. Oh, I love this house, I gotta have it. That's the most common thing people do when they're walking through houses they love. Oh, I love this house, I gotta have it. You're not getting a low ball price. Accept it. If someone hears that, that's it. It's a done deal. You're not getting that house. You're going to pay for it if you want that house. Because they know you're emotionally want it. You've got to keep emotion out of it. This is not just about getting a house you love. It's about getting a house you love at a great price that you can make tax-free money off of. That's what it's about. This is helping you get to that retirement before you're 72. That's what this is going to do for you. So there's the calculation. The only difference on the other side is if it's 33% instead of 38, and you have to subtract you don't have to subtract the monthly payments on your student loan or car payment because that person doesn't have it. So still divide by 0.9, still multiply by the same index number because it's the same loan. Because that person doesn't have the other payments, they can afford 138,900 something mortgage. And they can make offers up to 154,000, so they're looking at houses that are around 175 or 180,000 as the asking prices are lower. All right, everybody got that one? So we did the monthly payment calculation, we did an affordability calculation, you got introduced to the private mortgage insurance and what that's all about. I even gave you a hint how some people can avoid it quickly. One more thing on our private mortgage insurance. If you lived in that house for about a year and you're still paying that private mortgage insurance, the mortgage company is not going to get a hold of you and say, hey, this house has probably increased in value. You've made a few payments on the loan, so the amount you owe is decreased. You may be at the 20%. They're not going to call you and say that. You have to call them. You got to say, hey, I think I might be at the 20% equity now. Even if you don't do that home equity loan, you've just been making payments, and the home's been increasing in value because you picked the right location. And you've gotten that 20% just on its own. When you contact them and ask them to take that PMI off because you think you reached that 20%, they're going to say, we have to do a new appraisal. Believe me, it's worth the $350 that you'll have to pay to get the new appraisal done, as long as you feel confident that the appraisal is going to come in at one price and the amount you owe on your loans at another price, and there's a 20% gap between those. You feel that appraisal, your house has really increased in value, and the amount you owe has gone down because you've already made a year's worth of payments on it, gone down a little. And if you feel confident there's a 20% gap, pay the $350, get the appraisal done. They have no choice now but to remove that insurance, and your payment just went down $100 a month. You're getting back the $350 in 3.5 months, and you're coming out way ahead every month after that. But you're the one who has to keep an eye on it and know when you reach that 20% to get rid of that, because you're just throwing money away. All right, real estate agent. Going to slide, you've got the PowerPoint, going to slide 15. Has anybody ever been a real estate agent, or have a relative as a real estate agent, or dealt with real estate agents? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, that's it? 4, 5? That's it, 5 of you, okay. I'm going to try not to be biased. What do you think? I have not had a lot of good experiences with real estate agents, and I've definitely never had a good experience with a lawyer. So I don't know what to say about that. But, so I went ahead and dedicated myself to never using a real estate agent to sell a house. but I almost always use a real estate agent to buy a house. Now here's the reason. The seller always has to pay the real estate agents. Both. Even if there's not two involved, you still got to pay this big amount. And the average, or almost always, it's 6% of the selling price. Now don't get me wrong, as the house gets more expensive being sold, there's a lot of agencies who will lower that to 5% and even 4%, but I've almost never seen any go below 4%. But houses, under 200,000, it's almost always 6%. The seller has to pay it. Now, even if a buyer shows up and they don't have a real estate agent, by the way, I want to tell you, 3% is going to the agency representing the seller, and 3%, or half of it, whatever the percent is going to the buyer's agency. And even if a buyer shows up and doesn't have an agent representing them, you still got to pay the 6%. They consider it going all to the seller's agent then, because even though the seller's agent is representing you, if the buyer doesn't have an agent, they're kind of representing them too by default. And so you still got to pay the 6%. But as a buyer, you're looking for a house. It doesn't cost you anything to have an agent. They're being paid by the seller. So, and they become very helpful when it comes to the closing if you've never been through a closing. Because a closing, you're going to have to sign approximately 20 documents. It's just a ton of paperwork that's overwhelming. And if you have your real estate agent that's represented you, this is where they pay off, is at the closing. They can quickly explain each document without you having to read all that fine print. What are you signing? Here's what it is, because they're trying to represent your best interest as the buyer's agent. Now, the only time you may not want a buyer's agent is if you're considering a house that's for sale by an owner that doesn't have a seller's agent. In those scenarios, after you buy your first house and you're ready for your second house and you've gone through a closing, go ahead then and consider not using an agent to buy, because you've experienced a closing and you know what it's all about and you know what to expect. The advantage is if it's for sale by owner and they don't have to pay an agent anything, and you don't bring an agent that they would have to pay, then you can get a much lower price. You're going to make a local offer. The odds of them accepting it are a lot better because they don't have to give 6% to agents. So that would be the only situation. But on your very first house, when you go to buy, have an agent. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So like no matter what, first house.
You should, yeah. Because if you somehow are able to not use an agent, consider paying a couple $100 to a real estate lawyer just to go with you to the closing. Because if you've never experienced a closing, you want to have someone there with you who has experienced a closing. Has anybody experienced a closing?
I had a question.
You have? Do you remember signing the paperwork?
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
There's a lot, isn't it? Did you start reading all of it?
No, I didn't.
You had an agent who's telling you which each one is, right? Yeah, it saves a lot of time. You don't want to blindly sign everything. You want to make sure you know what you're signing.
So what would an agent for a buyer cost?
Cost the buyer nothing. The seller has to pay both the buyer and the seller's agent.
Okay, what if the seller doesn't have an agent?
If the seller doesn't have an agent, the agent representing you, because you said, hey, I want to go see this house that's for sale by owner, they have to call them and negotiate a price, because they will never show you that house if they're not going to get paid. They'll give you, and I just want to tell you, I've learned real estate agents are not afraid to lie for some reason. Lawyers aren't either for some reason. And one of the lies that I've heard many times from agents is, oh, you don't want to see that house. That's why they don't have an agent. They aren't going to make any money. They do not want to sell you a house that's for sale by owner that doesn't have an agent to represent them, because they're not going to make any money. They have to call and try to negotiate a deal. I got somebody interested in your house. I'm their agent. It's 3%. Will you sign something that says you'll pay me 3% if my client will buy your house? And for sale by owner doesn't have to say yes. They'll say, no, I'm not going to pay you 3%. Tell them to just come over on their own. They won't tell them to come over on their own. They'll tell them that house is not available. Or whatever the situation is, they'll say something to convince you to never go see that house because they can't make money off it if they show you that house. That's it. Very common practice, so that's the deal. All right, and that's the thing about selling your house yourself without an agent, is if a buyer finds your house and they have an agent, that they're probably not going to come see your house because that agent will talk them out of it. But I've had agents call me on some of my houses for sale by owner, and I have worked out a deal, and usually I'll go as high as 2%, and usually they're mad about it, but they'll then, okay, I'll bring them over, type of thing, and then you got to deal with it. But I've never had to pay it out because I've never had somebody come with an agent when I'm selling by owner and then end up buying it. It's always been somebody who's found the house on their own and doesn't have an agent at all, and I've never then had to pay the agency fee. I've never paid an agency fee for selling a house. I've had agents represent me buying houses, but not selling. I've always sold them on my own. Once I experienced that first closing, the first house I bought, and I had an agent with me, I realized, this was a lot, but I can do this on my own without it. And after a few, I've had friends who said, hey, I'm going to for sale, will you go with me to the closing? And I've helped them through the closing so they didn't have to have an agent either when they go to buy a house. So that's my story about real estate agents. When you're buying your first house, have one. They're very helpful, closing especially. And you don't have to pay them anything. The thing is it just lowers the odds a little bit of your low ball offer being accepted. But there's still a lot of sellers out there who will accept your offer even if there's agents involved. Next, types of mortgages. We're going to slide 18. I want to highlight two types of mortgages especially. Fixed rate and variable rate, because they're the most common. Fixed rate, yes, there's 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. The most common is 30 years. It brings the payment in an affordable monthly amount that most people can afford, and that's why they go 30 years. The interest, what can you put down? There are some out there that won't let you get a mortgage from them unless you're putting down 20%. There's some that say you can put down 10%, but you're going to have this mortgage insurance. And there's a lot of programs out there where, I'm trying to think, FHA, I think is the name of one, where they allow you to just put down 5%. And just before the housing crash, FHA went down all the way to about like 1.5% down. And I think some were even 0% down. I don't think we're at that point now. We've had a recovery in the housing market. But I believe the lowest you might be able to find is about a 5% down. But you probably have the mortgage insurance, unless there's a Veterans Administration 5% down. Sometimes they'll waive the mortgage insurance for you. Go ahead.
I had something advertised to me for 0% down. It was up to $100,000. So
Oh,
limited how much you could spend, but it was still 0% down.
And you didn't get as far as figuring out if there's mortgage insurance
No,
or
I
whether
mean, I
or
wasn't
not.
buying a house, so I didn't look too far into it, but it was 0%
So
down.
0% do exist out there, but there's almost all of them will demand the mortgage insurance when you're putting 0% down. So you could start right away, even with nothing down. In some cases, if the housing market's made that kind of a comeback, that those are available again, then take advantage of it if you want to start right away when you graduate, get into a house. Even if you're paying the mortgage insurance, if you pick the right location, that house is increasing in value at a rate that will make it worth it. And hopefully you'll make enough money off it to use that money to put 20% down on the next house, so you don't have to pay the mortgage insurance.
I was talking to my mom about the housing assignment, and my mom and dad have moved a few times since they got married because my dad's job took them different places. And they said that each time they sold their house, they made more. So then they made enough off it that they just bought a bigger house.
Well, and what happens is if you sell your house and you buy a bigger house, even though you've made money off the house, you still may not have enough to put the 20% down to avoid the PMI, but they probably did.
Yeah.
Because along the way they're saving on the way too. And here's how you got to look at a house. It is an excellent savings retirement program, because you can make a bunch of money off these houses and pay no taxes on it. And that makes it even better than the retirement program you have at work. And that's why I say to people go, oh, for me to get the matching at work, I have to put in 5% of my pay and then they match it. Should I put in more? And my answer is never put in more than the amount you have to, the maximum amount you got to put in to get the maximum matching. Don't put in any more. If you want to save more for retirement, start putting more into the house. Because while the money's in the house, it's making money tax-free. While the money's in the retirement, you gotta pay taxes on all that money after you retire instead of taking the money out. You're gonna be able to make another 30% of the money by doing the house instead of the retirement. You avoid all that tax, the 20-some% federal tax, the 4% state tax, 30% more in your pocket by doing the house. Now, don't get me wrong, you have to do the retirement to get the matching, because that doubles your money within seconds, and there's no other investment that will double your money in seconds. So you have to do the matching, but don't put extra in there. Use the extra to save, to put towards the house. Because now the money's in a retirement called the house, and it's making money tax-free, which is an extra 30% in your pocket. So that's kind of the thing to not waste, or not lose out on opportunities. So the types of mortgages, there's different years, like 15, 20, and 30, most common 30. There's different percent downs, 0, 5, 10, 20% or more down. Avoid the PMI, private mortgage insurance. The adjustable rate mortgages, called variable rate. There's even some that flippers, sometimes they get those mortgages that you only have to pay on the interest portion of the mortgage and not the principal because they know they're going to flip it. I don't want to talk about that one right now. I'm talking about just a regular 30-year mortgage, but it's a variable rate instead of a fixed rate. A lot of people get attracted to those variable rate mortgages because they're a lower rate than the fixed rate. So you're talking to a mortgage person, and they realize you're going to qualify for their best mortgage. And you go, and they're saying, hey, we have this 30-year fixed rate mortgage, it's at 5%. But we have this 30-year variable rate mortgage that's only at 4% right now, or 4.5%. Save 0.5%. Now, you always have to ask yourself, do you think interest rates are going to go up, or do you think interest rates are going to go down? Because if you think there's any chance of interest rates going up, that mortgage percentage is going to be going up. Because it's variable. And that's what got to a lot of people before 2008. Interest rates started going up faster than expected. All of a sudden, their payment went up faster than expected because the variable rate of their mortgage went up, and it got into a point of being unaffordable. And that's what happens when you get suckered into that variable rate mortgage. Now, if you think interest rates are going to go down, let's say it's 2009, the crash had already taken place, foreclosures are all around you, interest rates are going to go down as part of recovery for the economy, grab the variable rate. If you have, oh, I'm in a situation, I need to buy a house, there may be the time where you want to grab a variable rate mortgage. It's a little less than the fixed rate mortgage, and it will go down as overall interest rates go down, and your payment on your house goes down along the way, and it ends up being a better decision. Now, people in 2009 said, oh, well, I'm going to get a fixed rate mortgage. And then interest rates went down. And 2 years later, you had a whole bunch of people wanting to refinance because they want that lower rate. They didn't get a variable rate. They would have got the lower rate automatically because it went down as interest rates went down. And they oh, I didn't know interest rates were going to go down, even though it was so obvious in 2009. Because every time they want to make the economy recover, overall interest rates get lowered, so variable rates go down. But they go, oh, I want to take advantage of these lower rates. No problem. You can get a whole new mortgage at that new fixed lower rate, but the bad news is you got to pay closing costs and go through the whole closing process again because it's a brand new loan. And so every time people are thinking about refinancing, which is when we're in a situation where interest rates are going down, I always get a bunch of emails and calls from people I've known who say, can you help me figure out if I should refinance? So they say, my payment right now is $950 a month, and the new loan is 1.5% less than the payment I make right now, so my payment's going to go down $100. And I say, okay, have you talked to somebody to see what the closing costs would be? And we're going to talk a little more what closing costs are. But let's say the average closing costs are about $2,200. You got to pay or have built into the loan when you go to that closing to get this new loan. So I always say, take the monthly amount that you're going to save and divide it into the cost involved in getting that new loan. So that's $2,200 divided by $100 is what? 22. You're going to save $100 a month, $2,200 closing cost to get the new loan at that lower rate. Divide the $100 into $2,200. It's going to take 22 months to break even on your savings. And then I always say, you tell me the percent chance that you'll still be in your house in 22 months. What about your job? Are you going to be in that job for the next 2 years? Are you going to keep living there for the next 2 years? Because that's almost 2 years. And if they say, I feel very confident I'm going to be right here 2 years from now and still have this house, then as soon as they get past that 22 months, that is a true savings. Another extra $100 in their pocket, and they should refinance. But if they feel there's a chance that they could be relocating in less than 2 years, then they might as well not refinance. It's a better decision just to stay with the loan you have because of those closing costs. And you should have got a variable rate when you got this loan, knowing the interest rates were going to go down. So this is called the refinancing break-even calculation. It's the closing costs divided by the monthly savings and payment. Everybody get that? The closing cost divided by the monthly savings and payment gives you the number of months to break even and helps you make a decision whether you should refinance or not. I want to go back to this table. You ready? Hey, right now you borrowed $100,000 and it was at 6%. So let me put that up here, 100,000, and it was at 6%, and you have a 30-year mortgage. So what's your index number? Off that table, 30-year mortgage, what did I say, 6%. Index number? 6.0. Now you multiply that times the number of thousands you borrowed on your loan to get we're estimating the payment. So 6.0 times how many thousands? 100 of them would be $600 is the payment on that loan, approximately, not including the taxes and insurance. You see it? I got 100,000, then I got 6%, 30 years, and then I have number 6.0 off the table. Multiplied it times 100, because that's how many thousands the loan is, 600. And let's say the same loan, 100,000, just so we don't get confused, but now interest rates are at 4.5%. Or let's say 5%. 5%. What's the index number if rates go down to 5%? Let's say 5% 30 year is the new loan that you could refinance. Now let's call it 4.5. I'm sorry. Let's call it 4.5. Change your note. 4.5%. What's the index number? 5.07. Is it 5.07? Is it? I lost it. No, 4.5? You're right. 5.07. The number is 5.07. What would be the payment on a $100,000 loan for this loan? $507. How much would this person save per month if they decide to refinance from the 6% loan to this 4.5% loan? $93. $600 minus 600 minus the 507, $93. And then you say, and if they decide to do this refinancing, the closing costs are $2,000. How long will it take them to break even? What's the calculation instead of the number? What are you going to do? What times divide, multiply, what?
2,000.
That's right. 2,000 divided by the $93 per month savings equals 21.551. I'm going to call it 21.51, 21.5 months to the break even. So if the person said, if they feel they're going to be in their house for at least 21.5 more months, it's a great decision to refinance. You get that $93 a month savings. Everybody see how I did that? I just prepared you for the homework assignment that I'm not even sure I'm going to assign. Maybe I prepared you for the final. So we got it. We've touched the mortgages. There's fixed, there's variable, and there's refinancing. We covered that along the way. In case we didn't get a variable and interest rates did go down, we're thinking about refinancing, we calculate how long it would take to break even if we decide to do it. All right, second mortgage. That's that home equity loan I was talking about. We're going to slide 20. Right up here. The advantage is, if everybody remembers, I've said this several times, there's a lot of advantages of taking a home equity loan, such as you're thinking about getting a car, and the car loan is at a certain rate, and you could qualify for a home equity loan. And if the two are at the exact same rate, would you be better off with the car loan or the home equity loan? Home equity loan because, say it again. There's two reasons, almost. It's the interest you're paying, if they're both the same rate, the home equity loan's tax deductible. So you would get a refund on the interest you're paying on the home equity loan, so you get like 25% of it back. So it really ends up being a much better one. And then the other reason is a home equity loan is spread over a longer period of time, and your car payment, if you use a home equity loan, would be much smaller than a car loan. So that'd be the other advantage. But the big advantage is that being able to write off the interest on your taxes. If you're itemizing because you own a home already, you could use the equity in your home to get the car loan and be able to have an additional tax deduction. Now, don't get me wrong, this new tax bill is about to pass. It's going to take away some of these home equity loans and interest paid on home deductions. So you got to watch out for that. I think one bill passed by one says there's a limit, and the other one just took it out all of it, so who knows. I want to tell you, this new tax bill isn't necessarily that great for all of us, just so you know. We don't hear anybody screaming enough yet because they're getting close to passing it completely. So that's what a second mortgage is, home equity loan. And yes, you don't have to use it all. You'll get approved for it, and you can just use it when you want it and however much you want it, and it is tax deductible. It's open-ended. The last thing before we ever end class is a reverse mortgage. Tell me you've been up late at night. It's usually the commercial store people, so I don't remember now if it's late at night. But it's like, oh, Henry Winkler, Fonzie from Happy Days, oh, you want to get a reverse mortgage. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? I don't get many experience. Becky, you know anyone? Nobody else?
Early in the morning.
Oh, it's early in the morning? Is that what
Late
it
at
is?
night for me, but early in the morning.
Anybody? You've never seen these commercials?
I've seen them, yeah.
I want to tell you what a reverse mortgage is. It's where, hey, you've been in your house for 30 years, you have all this equity, you don't owe anything on it. Let us make you monthly payments, and and it's kind of like a reverse mortgage. Instead of you paying payments on a mortgage, we're going to use the house as collateral for a loan, basically, and make payments to you. And it always says tax-free. That's right. The equity you built in your house is tax-free because you've lived there for over 2 years. That's that whole thing I'm trying to tell you about. It is tax-free. What they don't tell you in the commercial is, you can do this yourself. You owe nothing on your house. You say, hey, I want a home equity loan. You got it. And you take the home equity loan and you just make the payments to yourself, and they're tax-free because you're pulling money out of the equity that was going to be tax-free anyway. What they don't tell you is, if you go with a reverse mortgage, and I've had more than one friend whose parents have done this, and it's always turned out awful. Once your parent dies, and they have been involved in a reverse mortgage, the reverse mortgage company whips out their little fine print rules and says, we have control of the house, you cannot sell this house, we sell this house. And they set exactly how it's going to be advertised, what realtors can be used, and what prices can be sold at, and they price it to be sold fast. And when they sell it fast, it got sold at such a lower price than you could have got for it, that what's left, they get their money first, and whatever's left goes to the family as an inheritance. The amount that goes in inheritance to the family ends up being so small, or in one friend's case, zero. Because that reverse mortgage said, we're selling that house for whatever we want to sell it fast, we're pricing it low. And you can't do anything about it. Had those parents instead said, we're not going to do a reverse mortgage, we're going to take out a home equity loan, take the lump sum, put it over here, and pay ourselves that amount per month that we were looking to get. And it's going to be tax-free anyway. And now, when they pass, the family controls how that house is sold, and for what price, and who represents them, and all the other things. And they end up coming out way ahead. So please, convince your grandparents and parents, to not do a reverse mortgage. And if they want that monthly extra money on top of their Social Security to do a home equity loan, it's the same thing, and they have much more control over it. And whatever the monthly amount they're gonna get it from the reverse mortgage, they just take out that same amount and transfer it into their spending account from the home equity loan money that's sitting there in an interest-bearing account. All right, how's that? Everybody got it? We're done with housing? Is everybody gonna reach, because of this, is everybody gonna buy a house in the right location someday down the road? Yes? Tell me? Are we? All right. All right. And do it right, because this whole class, this has gone full circle. My goal was to help you figure out how you're going to reach that $1 million when you're ready to retire, because you've got to have it. I just read an article today where they're saying you need now 1,900,000. You know, if you are a poor college student like I was, I learned how to live on a lot less money than 1,900,000 when I'm retired. It kind of got me to where I don't have to have a lot of material things and know I can be happy with little. Do the same thing, and $1 million when you retire isn't going to be a little, it's going to be a lot. So this doing the house thing is what's going to give you that jump at the end to reach your goal. And I hope you can retire early. The in-class today, work in groups, don't work alone. This may be either your first or second in-class, very last or second to last in-class of the semester. You're going to use that table we referred to on page 231 a couple of times, and you're going to calculate the monthly payment on each of these 3 loans. There are different types of loans, different amounts, and you calculate it. Show your work completely, the number off the table, what you're multiplying it by, the usual routine. And that's it. We only got 2 more lectures.